overdraft protection offered by most U.S. banks typically charges consumers around $35 each time they overdraw their accounts to cover a transaction. But a new survey commissioned by the Pew Charitable Trusts finds overdraft protection more often acts as an extremely expensive and high-risk form of credit for Americans who can least afford it. Joining us now to discuss is Susan Weinstock, Director of the Consumer Banking Project at the Pew Charitable Trusts. Welcome, Susan. Great to have you here. Your survey has uncovered some very unsavory truths about these overdraft fees. How did you conduct the survey?
This is a nationally representative survey of people who have overdrafted their accounts more than 3 or more times in a year. So they spent over $100 in overdraft fees in a year.
And so which groups did you find are most burdened by these fees?
Well, we found that they tend to be young, they tend to be lower income, and they tend to African Americans are overrepresented as a proportion of the population.
So is this $35 to $38 fee being charged by the banks for each transaction it covers substantially larger than the median transaction being covered?
The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is looking at overdraft and will hopefully be writing rules soon on this issue, they found that the typical transaction size for a debit card purchase is $24, and then the banks charge a $35 fee for a $24 transaction.
So when you break all of that down, these multiple fees for small charges, what kind of interest rate does this work out to be?
So that comes to 17,000% interest is what the CFPB calculates.
17,000% interest. That's crazy. And most overdrafters, I'm sure, say they would prefer the transaction to be declined rather than incur another fee, correct?
That's absolutely right. When we asked people about this, 2/3 said we would prefer to pay, to not have the transaction go through, have it declined, than pay the $35 fee.
So what is Pew urging the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to do in light of this survey? What are the recommendations?
What we want to see is new rules come out of the Bureau, and they've been looking at it. They've done 2 really terrific reports that looks at this issue in depth. But now it's time to write new rules. And the rules need to either look at the size or the frequency of how these fees are incurred. The problem is for people who overdraft a lot, this has become an extremely expensive form of credit, but it doesn't have the protections that come with credit.
Protections such as?
Like that, when you have a credit card, they have to tell you the interest rate up front, or they have to make sure that you have an ability to repay the credit that you're offered. None of those rules apply to overdraft.
And clearly, it sounds like some people are spending, upwards of a week's salary, the equivalent of a week's salary, just on their overdraft fees?
That's right. And it's particularly difficult for those making under $25,000 a year.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Susan Weinstock, thank you so much for that. Director of the Consumer Banking Project at the Pew Charitable Trust. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.